to go ahead and move on to two-step equations. So in these cases, we have an add or subtract and a multiply or divide. So if we look at step 1, it is to do the addition subtraction part with the constant on both sides of the equal sign. And then it's to do the divide and multiply. And we always start with that constant, that number by itself. So if we look at number 1, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line down that equal sign. We're going to start with the constant. And what that means is we have this -7 right here, and I'm going to deal with that part first. So I'm going to go ahead and add 7 to both sides of the equal sign. That gives me 9x equals 0. So then I'm going to do the division multiply on this one. So 9x, since they're right next to each other, that means multiply. So I'm going to divide both sides by 9. I'm left with x equals 0. And if you notice, as I go along, I always cross out what I am eliminating, crossing out what is going to cancel out, so that I know exactly what I'm left with. Anything that's not crossed out, I'm left with on that side, and I bring it down. So in this first piece, we had 9x minus 7, and I added the 7, so the 7 went away, and I just brought down that 9x. So it helps me keep organized, helps me not get lost in my own problem. All right, let's look at number 2. So we're always going to start with that constant. So the constant is -6 in this case. So since it's -6, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So that cancels out, and I'm left with just x over 4 equals 1. So if we have x over 4, that's a division problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 4. That cancels that out right there, and I'm just left with x equals, and I'm going to multiply this side by 4. 1 times 4 is 4. X equals 4. And what I can also do is I can go back and say -6 plus 4 over 4. So I'm replacing this x by what its numerical value is, equals -5. And when I do that, -6 plus 4 over 4 gives me -5. I can go ahead and plug this part into the equation, or into my calculator, and the answer should be -5. So that's a way to go back and double check yourself, just to make sure you are getting the correct answers. All right, let's look at this one. -1 equals 5 plus x over 6. So this one is a little interesting. We cannot start with the coefficient because the coefficient is over 6. So what I'm going to do in this case, this one's an exception to this rule, is I'm going to multiply by 6 first, because that divided by 6 is kind of blocking us from getting to that 5. We can't quite do anything with that 5 until we get rid of that 6. So when I multiply, I'm left with 5 plus 5 plus x. And then on this side, I'm going to multiply that -1 by 6, which will give me -6 equals 5 plus x. So then in this case, I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to get rid of that 5. It's a positive 5, so what I have to do is I have to do -5 on both sides. So x equals -11. And again, I can go back and plug that in to make sure it works. Let's look at this last one. 0 equals 4 plus n over 5. So I'm going to deal with that coefficient first. So it's positive 4, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. That gives me n over 5 on this side and -4 on this side. So then this is division over here, so I'm going to multiply this side by 5 and this side by 5. And that should give me n equals negative 20. All right, so go ahead and try these practice problems on your own. All right, let's go ahead and look at some of these practice problems. So in this first one, remember the goal is to get that r by itself. So what we should have done is, you see this negative 5, we should have added 5 first to both sides. Because our first step is that addition and subtraction. So cancel that out on this side. We're left with just r over 20. And then on this side, negative 4 plus 5 will give us 1. So then we do the division and multiplication. So we're dividing by 20 here. So to get rid of the 20, we are going to multiply by 20, which cancels out over there. 1 times 20, you should have gotten r equals 20. All right, let's look at number 2. So again, we're going to start with this 2 over here. We're adding 2, so what we're going to do is subtract 2 on both sides. So that'll cancel out on there, and we're just left a over 4 on this side. And then 6 minus 2 will leave us with 4. So we have 4 on this side and a over 4 on this side. Since we're dividing, we're going to multiply by 4 on both sides. So on this side, we're left with a, and then 4 times 4 gives us 16. All right, and number 3, remember this is like the number 3 in the practice, in the examples that we did earlier. In order to get that v by itself, we have to get rid of that 3 first. That 3 is almost blocking our way to that 9. So since we're dividing by 3, we're going to multiply by 3 on both sides. So that'll cancel that 3 on this side. We're left with v plus 9 equals, and then 8 times 3 will give us 24. And now we can go ahead and continue to work to get that v by itself by subtracting 9 from both sides, which will leave us with v over here equals 15. All right, last practice problem. We want to deal with our subtraction and addition first. So we're going to subtract 1 from both sides because we want to do the opposite. So plus 1 minus 1 will give us 0. Cancels that out, and we're only left with negative 9 equals x. Then we have negative 81 minus 1 gives us negative 81. And then we're going to divide by negative 9 because we're multiplying here. So we got to do the opposite by multiplying, which will give us x equals positive 9 because negative 81 divided by negative 9 gives us 9. All right, and that is the end of two-step equations.